Swear to God, even by myself, I'm a complete mess. I'm over here knocking over water, tripping over, video equipment. Can't do a thing. Utter chaos. This is why nothing works. This is why. Welcome and welcome back to Achieving Failure, a podcast about life stories and the adventures that made us who we are today. I'm your host, Chris, and today we're doing something a little bit different as I do not have a guest, so I'm by myself. However, I want to try and kind of take this podcast in a different direction because it's honestly, it's boring. It's not entertaining the way I was hoping it would be. So this week, I would like to more or less tell a story in an actual story form. Now, as hopefully this progresses, I would like to include more videos, more pictures, just get a little more interactive, just get some more life into this podcast. And with that, with everything going on, unfortunately, because I edit everything by myself, I'm going to start doing seasons. So I got a couple more episodes I'm going to put out, and then I'm going to say, okay, season one's done. Take a little break, record some stuff in the meantime. I would love to put out like little 2-minute stories just to kind of keep people entertained, and then come back. I would love to do season 2, and I would love to wrap up things. I would love to just do a season 2 that's a little more energetic. So we'll see what happens. If you love us or hate us, let us know. Give us a like and comment where you can, because all the feedback kind of pushes me in the direction of, do I keep going or do I just completely quit? So, without further ado, this week's episode, we are slowly approaching summer, and it's the middle of May, but we're approaching summer here in Las Vegas, and with spring coming to an end, it kind of reminded me of the whole county fair. Now, everybody's been to the county fair. Everybody knows what the county fairs are, but I was born and raised in New Jersey. Now, growing up in New Jersey, every year we'd go to the fair. Now, these would range from small pop-ups in church parking lots or malls to more massive county fairs that would take up acres. Going way, way back as a kid, going to the fairs, whether it be big or small, was a great way to get out of the house, loaded up on greasy sausage and peppers, deep fried everything, cotton candy, a ton of sugar, and my personal favorite, funnel cakes and Zeppelis. Now, from what I've seen, Zeppelis I have not seen Zeppelis kind of outside of the New Jersey, New York area, so for those who do not know what Zeppelis are, pretty much Zeppelis are nothing more than deep-fried balls of dough covered in powdered sugar. They're crunchy on the outside, soft on the inside, but every time, you're an idiot because right out of the fryer, into your mouth, you're burning the hell out of yourself trying to do that, blowing past the food, making that stupid face as you burn your tongue. Funnel cakes, on the other hand, everybody knows what funnel cakes are. Funnel cakes were another food to throw down your gullet, not thinking twice at how hot it was. But this time, these cakes were just big piles of fried batter, almost looking like the best way to describe it would be waterlogged spaghetti. But I think, once again, they're covered with powdered sugar, and sometimes people would do chocolate syrup, or they do strawberries, just another reason just to pile on calories and more sugar. So now you got your plate, your one single paper plate of Zeppelis or funnel cakes, and it's hot as hell. You're burning your hand because the grease is already soaking through the bottom of the plate. You got powdered sugar everywhere. And you're walking around a fairground, it's late at night because you always end the fair with funnel cakes or Zeppelis. You're tripping over random crap, electrical cords from vendors, or just trash people decided this is an acceptable place to throw. You have to remember, all this powdered sugar has a tendency of just flying everywhere. By the time you're done eating it, it's all over your face. The sugar, the fried batter, makes that perfect glue. So now your fingers are sticky, and you're trying your damnedest not to wipe it on your clothes, but some punk kid already ran past you, trying to get onto the next ride, so you already spilled some. And you keep forgetting because you grabbed a wad of towels or napkins or something, but the first thing you did before you started eating this shit was you stuck everything in your back pocket. So, one hand, you got the hot, sticky funnel cake. Your other hand is now, looks like you've been eating plaster of Paris. Your hands are all covered in junk and grease, and you can't reach for anything anymore because you're going to get powdered sugar all over yourself. But, I mean, that was just kind of the trials and tribulations of eating funnel cakes and Zeppelis. So, after tossing all this fried gold down your gullet, the only reasonable thing to do was go on some rides. One of the rides that used to terrify the absolute hell out of me was a ride called the Zipper. This has been almost the staple of any fair, as our parents would always bring us to the Sussex County Fair. Arriving at the fair, we would always approach, going down this long stretch of road. You were always welcome to the smells of hay and horse crap, but in the distance you saw it. The big Ferris wheel with lights going in all different directions, flashing and swirling enough to give you a photosensitive epilepsy if you stared at it too long. However, usually around the same vicinity was the Zipper. The best way to describe this insane piece of demonic machinery was it was like oval oblong shape. It was almost like a squashed oval. Depending on how big the ride was, and depending on the vicinity that it was in, this ride would range from 6 to 12 cages that would not only follow this driven belt around the frame, but the cage itself would also spin in a front or backwards momentum. The oblong frame would also spin. So now you're talking, you got 3 points of pivoting G-forces. You have the entire frame on this boom spinning. You're following this boom. You're strapped in. This medieval coffin was designed to hold 2 people, and the reasons for 2 people, because it kept you from getting whipped back and forth, left and right, while this cage was so narrow, it almost conformed to your body. So another protective measure to where you wouldn't smash your head back and forth while you're getting flung left and right. So you're trapped in this coffin. Nothing more than a foam safety bar across your lap. You're getting flung this way and that way, and your cage is flipping around and around and around. Now, here's the thing, and a lot of kids know this. If you timed it just right, and as the rumors go, if you were able to build up enough man-made momentum from rocking your cage, you and your buddy would go into this thing they would call an endless spin, where this cage itself would twirl constantly as it would plunge itself right into the asphalt before getting yanked around the bend of the boom and hurled back into space. This ride was definitely not for the faint of heart. It was also not good for those who carried change in their pockets, because this ride was a close resemblance of 2 bullies holding you upside down and shaking you of all the sticks of gum, loose change, and pocket lint that you carried with. This ride was hell on wheels. Now, for those who are kind of curious, I have the specs to kind of go into more detail about how ridiculous this thing was. The average height of this ride was about 56 feet high, 17.1 meters for my international friends. The cage of capsules would travel around a boom, which is an oblong shape, at 4 revolutions per minute, while the boom itself rotated 7.5 RPMs in the same direction of the pulley system. Now, it gets worse. Not only was the ride able to go in a clockwise motion, but it was also capable of going counterclockwise. So if you had the cool carnival operator, you were getting sent in both directions. Recommended time for this particular ride was 2 minutes, with a maximum time of 2.5 minutes, because that was usually the right amount of time to shake all the kids clean of change, or the amount of force to send whatever that kid had for lunch that day projected from the capsule down onto unsuspecting people who were patiently waiting their turns in line to also come to the same fate. The night was never done. The night was never done without going on a Ferris wheel, as a lot of couples would take their girl because it was one of the more tamer rides she can enjoy. When it was all said and done, you left the fair happy, sticky from all the grease, syrup, but you always managed to have just enough tickets that you were never able to use, because all the rides you wanted to go on were like 6 tickets. And it was always, at the end of the night, you always ended up with 4 or 5. And even with 1, 2, 3 buddies, you were never able to get the full amount. You always had an odd amount of tickets that were never enough for your entire group to go. So it was either everybody's going or we're leaving an odd man out. So at the end of it, you just got frustrated and just threw your tickets on the ground with the rest of the trash. And you sat there and waited for your parents to come pick you up. As I got older, I was able to start traveling further on my own, and every spring I would hop into my old sky blue 1990 Lincoln Town Car with the big 5.0 V8, bench seats, the air ride suspension, and drive my friends to the Sussex County Fair in northern New Jersey. Before we were limited, we had smaller fairs. Now, for us, smaller fairs, some of them were at church parking lots. This one in particular was St. Catherine's, right in my hometown of Ringwood, New Jersey. But if you wanted to go to bigger fairs, I mean, it was kind of the same thing. The rides were a little bit smaller, but they still had some carnival stuff. But if you wanted the good, better experience, you had to go to the actual county fairs. That's where the action was. That's where the fun was. But in the meantime, as a kid, if you went to the smaller fairs, you were able to kind of carpool. But if you wanted to go to the bigger fairs, you had to beg your parents to drive you, which now you got to now the parents have to take time off work and blah, blah, blah. It was so much easier just to get in my own car. So, without rambling, one year in particular, and I'll never forget this, and I still laugh about this experience, I went to the county fair with this girl that I had the biggest crush on. And when she asked if I wanted to go, I was nothing but ecstatic. Well, we got there in the afternoon, and crowds of children were starting to dwindle as they were getting cranky and the parents were ready to leave. But as the night progressed, the younger crowds would get swapped out with the teens, and then towards the end of the night, it was the older teens who were able to drive themselves. So here we are, enjoying each other's time, as my head's on a swivel, scoping out all the potential rides that I gotta go on before the end of the night, while she does the same. Except, it's not for the rides, but it's all for the food stands. Now this girl, not only was she one of the prettiest people I had the pleasure of spending time with, but she was also beautiful, as she had long, black, curly, wavy hair, bright green eyes, a smile to warm up anybody's day. But this girl, who was slim in figure, could eat, and my God, this girl could throw down some carnival food. I mean, corn dogs, deep fried Oreos, shakes, cotton candy. I said, holy hell, what was the last time you ate? I mean, she's walking around double fisting food. A true carnival food veteran, if you ask me. She knew exactly what she wanted and where to get it. As we weave in and out of the small game stands, you could hear the screaming of the riders, the clanging and banging of the food vendors and their metal spatulas, the obnoxious horns and wailing sirens of the game booths. I said, hey, why don't we go on a couple rides? I'm not the biggest fan of carnival rides. I get kind of dizzy. I'm kind of bummed, completely disappointed, but also determined. I tried to find a ride that could suit my adrenaline itch while trying to convince her this ride in particular was not that bad. We wandered, I pointed out a couple. With all my luck, everything was rejected. The day was almost coming to an end. The sun is about to set, and I'm running out of options for rides. I pointed out one. With great success, she finally caved, and we hopped online. Now, I don't really know the best name for this ride. Some of it's called the Vortex. There's a funny gag in Family Guy about it. But this ride in particular, it was a vertical roller coaster. It was a vertically circular roller coaster. So it was a 5-car ride that would sit on a 90-degree track, and it would go vertically up and around and around and around. And this in particular, sometimes, depending on how the ride was, sometimes you would get the chance to hang upside down before gravity pulled you back, and sometimes they would do it forwards and backwards. We hopped in the frontmost seat, and she was already reluctant, as she's been hounding food like a death row inmate on her last meal, but I tried to reassure her everything would be fine. The ride starts up, and we're going around, and you do that. You build up the momentum, kind of like a pendulum. You just go back, and then you go around and around, and you're going around, and I mean, it's going. Halfway through, she looks at me and goes, "Chris, I'm gonna be sick. I need to get off." I mean, well, who the hell am I to stop the ride? I just don't go, "Hey, stop, let me out." I mean, we're going in a circular motion pretty quick, and I don't have time. I can't stop this ride. You gotta ride it out. The ride finally comes to a stop. She takes a deep breath and goes, "I never want to do this again." I looked at her proudly. I said, "I mean, you were able to get through the entire ride without getting sick." And before I could finish my sentence, the poor girl throws up all over herself. I mean, it was just disgusting. Completely embarrassed because there's no one there. Because I'm completely embarrassed. She's completely embarrassed because now there's people wanting to hop on. I try to be the proper gentleman and ask the operator for something. I mean, something. Anything. Towels, blankets, something or anything to clean up this mess. Completely confused by the question, which is completely odd because you operate a piece of machinery that I know for a fact this is not the first time somebody's yacked on here. He starts looking around and goes, I got this. I said, I'll take it. He hands me this dirty, blue, tattered towel covered in oil or grease. As I'm trying to clean her up, we both notice this horrid smell, and it wasn't even a vomit, but it was just the smell of pure, like, gasoline. Whatever he gave us was not only covered in grease and oil, but diesel gas. So now this poor girl is covered in puke, smells like raw diesel, totally embarrassed, and just wants to leave. For me, this is not a great way to end a fair experience. I remember there was a little pop-up station that was selling some sundresses, so I ran over, picked whatever they had, and I stood guard in between the two vendor trucks because there were no bathrooms. In the general vicinity that we're in, there were no bathrooms. So we stood behind two vendor trucks, and she swapped out clothes, and she threw all her puke-filled clothes in a plastic bag, and we headed home. So, as I got older, I had the opportunity of living on both coasts. Growing up in New Jersey, I went to a bunch of county fairs, and comparing them with the attractions we would have at the Jersey Shore Boardwalk and the pier and the rides that they had, and that's something I would love to talk about also. I also had the opportunity of living in California. And out there in California, I got to go to some fairs in San Diego, and now currently living in Las Vegas. I mean, the fairs were the same. You go. You go, you just eat a lot, you go on rides, you leave tired, you're full, you're drunk, you're sunburnt. This year, being the spring of 2023, was the first time I went to the Clark County and Rodeo right outside Las Vegas in Logandale, Nevada. Now, this is a small little sleepy town, but the mass traffic on this weekend, we went on a Saturday, and I mean, this traffic was so bad. It stretched as far as the eye can see, with cars lined up for almost an hour to pile into this dirt parking lot. The line of cars went from the fair all the way down this 2-lane road for miles and miles before spilling onto the highway of 95 for even more miles. I think when I went, I think it took me almost an hour to almost get off the highway. I think it took me like almost an hour and a half just to get to this stupid fair. Would finally meet up with my friend Joey, his wife, his mother, and her mother, Joey's mother-in-law. Now, as tradition hasn't waved off the path yet, we continue of where's the food, where's the beer. Once again, my head's on a swivel. I'm looking at all the attractions and rides with one goal in mind: the pig races. Now, every year, everybody knows the pig races. All these county fairs have their own little pig races that everybody loves. The announcers have their own fun, giving the little piggies names like Jennifer Lopig, Brittany Spare Ribs, or even pop sensation Cardi Bacon. They're all lined up, 4 pigs at a time, and they'll race around the circuit almost like a horse track, to which all the piggy contestants are rewarded with an Oreo treat at the end. We continue the hot day, going about wandering adventurous through the attractions, seeing what all these pop-up booths have to offer. The way this fair in particular is set up, I walked in originally, and the food vendors were all set up. You had food bazaars, you had handcrafted jewelry, jerky, honey, leather, knives, and one beer booth that had a mob of dehydrated patrons who would rather pay $8 for a single 12-ounce can instead of getting free water. In the middle of the fair, there were barns with all the animals and family petting zoos. Towards the back of the fair lies all the rides: the swings, the pendulum rides, the Ferris wheel, and the infamous zipper. As an excited kid on Christmas, my eyes lit up to the side of the zipper, and I'm sitting there pulling at Joey's t-shirt like a 5-year-old. I said, dude, we have to go on this ride. Nope, he explained. I said, what? Why? He said, those rides are so poorly maintained. They're always on the news about an accident happening or someone getting seriously injured riding on those things. I replied, dude, I've been going to fairs my entire life and I've never seen this thing happen. Of course, I'm not going to rule out at this particular point that this has never happened, because unfortunately, yes, these things happen. The occasional mishaps to where accidents happen, but they're so rare. There's no way you can legally operate a poorly maintained piece of equipment. I realized this is going to be a losing battle. I kept going on. I kept my wits about me. And the success that I had last time trying to convince a friend on going on a ride with me, I knew luck was on my side. It was just a matter of time until he cracked and gave in. We continue eating and walking, eating and sitting, standing and walking and eating, standing on ridiculous bathroom lines, drinking. So the night was winding down, the sun set, and we were now drenched in the lights and the sounds of the nighttime fair. We had our fill and were debating what to do next as we stood outside one of the fun houses. This is my last attempt. I said, okay, Joey, if not for the crazy rides, I know you're not going to go on the zipper as much as I would love to. I know you're not going to go. Let's check out the fun house for old time's sake. Like, let's have fun. Let's be like kids. Nope. Again, faced with defiance and defeat, I said, fine. Well, I mean, that's it. Let's just head back to the car. And then suddenly with a loud clunk. And I mean, this is a clunk. I said, what the hell? Almost like an electrical circuit. Everything went black. I mean, the lights went out. I mean, all the lights went out. And so did all the rides. Everything came to a screeching halt. Every ride, vendor, even the soundstage and concert that was going on went dark. The only lights that were on were the generator lights shining random spots so people didn't trip over everybody. All we heard was screaming coming from the riders who were helplessly stuck on all the rides in the funhouse, and those poor souls stuck on the perpetual motion of the pendulum rides. The first thing that came to my mind was, wow, well, that's actually never happened before, as Joey was quick to piggyback off my thoughts of, see, that is why I never go on these rides. For 2 minutes, it was total darkness. But as soon as the lights went out, a loud clunk, lights came back on. No, even though it was just 2 minutes, before the 2 minutes are up, you really don't know how long it's going to be. Especially when you're stuck in a swinging chair that has now lost all the lights and all the power. Will this loss of power release the restraint system? Can I even find my way out of this pitch black funhouse? I'm sure the insanity of it all must have surely given some randoms a brief panic attack before the lights came back on. Sure enough, lights came back on, and people, as if nothing just happened to drastically change their night, went back to enjoying food, and the lines for the ride surely didn't stop. People got off, more people got on, and they started them back up. I looked at Joey. Joey looks at me. We look at Joey's wife. We all came to the conclusion that this is our sign to pick up and head out. We grabbed our stuff, headed back to their car, to which they were nice enough to drive me around for an additional 40 minutes looking for my car, because believe it or not, every field that's filled with cars, like a sea, they all start to look the same. And especially when it's 11 o'clock at night and you have a black car, and the car next to you is a black car, and he's got a truck, and that's got a truck, and the only thing you can actually use as a reference is the full moon in the sky. Nothing is as easy as it seems. So with that is my adventure to the county fair. Thank you so much, and come back next week as I have my buddy Joseph join me on our adventures on how I ruined an entire country star's set while filming his show. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Hey, it's Chris again. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Come back each week as we dive headfirst into more misadventures. Find us on social media, and if you have a story you'd love to share, shoot us an email at aflvpodcast@gmail.com. That's AF, Achieving Failure, LV, Las Vegas, podcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next week.